All right, let's get to the mess on Capitol Hill with our political panel. Jehmu Greene has finally turned up. She was 3.5 minutes late today. Not quite so bad, Jehmu. It's normally 5.
Why are you giving me a hard time? It's Christmas time.
All right, peace and goodwill to all men and women. And joining us from D.C. Bureau, Ford O'Connell is chairman of Civic Forum PAC and co-founder of Project Virginia. Ford, good to see you too.
Well, thank you for having me on, Jonathan. Jehmu, it's my job to give you a hard time. It's Christmas.
All right, well, let's start with that. Jehmu, what a mess on Capitol Hill. But if we're talking about the politics of it, the Democrats seem to be playing a smarter game.
Well, I think the American people are sick and tired of the politics of it, Democrat or Republican. If this was the first time, it would be one thing. If it was the second time, it would be another. This isn't the third time. This is the 4th time that these jokers on the Hill, led by mostly the freshman Republicans who were brought in 2010, on their mission to break government. And I think it's just absolutely unacceptable. At some point, I think they actually want us to go into a recession by taking $1,000 out of the pockets of 160 million Americans. They want us to go into a recession so that then maybe there's a better chance that they can defeat President Obama in November of next year.
Ford, this is all the fault of a right-wing cadre of Republicans, i.e. the Tea Party?
No, it isn't. Principally, they're right. Look, a 2-month extension gets us nowhere, and it just prolongs the inevitable. But I will agree with Jehmu on this one, and that is if we don't get a compromise, House Republicans are going to be the ones to blame, and we're losing the message war. Americans, it's Christmas time. They're tired. They want this done. They don't care how it occurs, and it may be time for House Republicans to give in. Look, recent Pew study says that the dysfunction in Congress, 40% of Americans blame Republicans. So it's time for Republicans to work on it. And when we get to fiscally wise legislation, Republicans are going to have to compromise with the president and Senate Democrats.
Jehmu, I've been struck by how over the last few days we have seen Republican on Republican criticism in this. There are many Republicans who appear to be realizing that whether or not the 2-month extension is the best thing, they are losing this politically, and they're starting to fire at each other. That's not good for them, is it?
Absolutely. Not just Republican on Republican. The Wall Street Journal came out, and yes, Karl Rove came out just yesterday talking to Neil Cavuto about, look, we've lost. We need to cut our losses and make sure that heading into Christmas, heading into the new year, you don't take $40 a week from the middle class, especially at a time when you have the Republicans who have been putting up the biggest fight for millionaires and billionaires and absolutely refusing to bring in more revenue and help save our economy by raising taxes on the wealthiest. But they're saying, oh, it's okay, we'll raise taxes on working Americans. And so I think that's why Karl Rove, that's why the Wall Street Journal and many Republicans are saying enough is enough.
So, Ford, what is wrong with a 2-month extension? At least it buys time, doesn't it, for a compromise to be found on the longer term?
It absolutely buys time, but it's not a solution. It's a Band-Aid. We got to actually put solutions out there. And one thing that the Republicans are really not doing well is they're not messaging the fact that we need entitlement reform, tax reform, and regulatory reform, and that's going to promote job growth, not these continued Band-Aids that Jehmu wants to banner about, and to create class warfare. It's going to get us nowhere. But I do agree the Republicans are losing this messaging battle, and they're almost handing President Obama a re-election without even having to have a real fight and actually come out and defend anything.
Jehmu, class warfare?
Class warfare has been conducted on the middle class for the last 30 years, Jonathan. I find it shocking that in the last year, when Republicans and the wealthiest Americans have said, oh, no, this is class warfare. When you have incomes that have completely stagnated for working Americans and CEOs are making 300 times what their employees are making. Productivity has gone up. Class warfare didn't start under Obama. It didn't start in the last 3 years. It's been waged on the middle class, and we've seen it even from a collective bargaining standpoint, trying to take the rights away from teachers and fireworkers and policemen. This is not the beginning of class warfare. I think it's finally going to be the end of it because the middle class is saying enough is enough. We're not going to take it anymore.
All right, I want to bring in a couple of our comments from our live chat here. Sarah SV says this isn't about a 2-month extension versus 1 year. That's a House GOP talking point, which even Senate Republicans disagree with. And Glenn from Sacramento says, and I would be interested in your thoughts on this, Ford, the majority of the people blame Republicans because that is all they see on TV, even from Fox. So it's the media's fault. Any justification to that?
Well, no, he's absolutely right. Americans don't know how the sausage is made in Congress. And what they see is they see a divisive Congress that isn't going to get anything done. And basically, Americans seem to believe that Republicans are the ones to blame. Right or wrong, it doesn't really matter. And House Republicans have to recognize this. And that's why it's wise for them to compromise on this 2-month extension. I do principally agree with them that we need a 1-year extension because the 2-month doesn't, help anything out. But again, House Republicans have to recognize that they're perceived as being the bad guys here, and if they want to take the Senate and knock President Obama out of the White House, they have to win the message war. And right now, they're just not doing it.
And Sarah also says, Jehmu, there has to be some leeway. It's about compromise. No one party gets everything they want, period. But every party wants to get everything they want running up to an election, or at least what they want may be to be able to blame the others. They don't necessarily want what's best for the country on either side of the
Sarah
divide,
is right. It is about compromise. And again, going back to if this was the first time, it'd be one thing. But this is the 4th time that they've taken us to the brink of default or shutting down the government. And it has been Democrats. It has been the president who has consistently compromised to, actually angering folks who are on the left saying, come on now, can you just show us that you're with us? And I think when you talk about compromise, there's no time, whether it's the deficit debate we had this past summer, the debt ceiling debate, the budget debate in the spring, where we've seen Republicans say, okay, we're willing to come to the table and compromise. They've gone in there and Ford, we're from Texas and we know a thing or two about cowboys. They've gone in there like cowboys and they've said, it's my way or the highway. And that's not how sausage is made. They're not making sausage. They're making slot.
Jehmu, it is, look. Let me say this, Jehmu. One day you're going to have a fantastic career as a press secretary for a communist regime with this yarn you're spinning, okay? Look, it is about compromise, but it's about wise fiscal compromise. The reason why we're in this class warfare situation and this bloated debt is because we've been making compromise based on political convenience, moving from stone to stone. We need to take a macro look at this, and both sides need to compromise when it's fiscally prudent to do so in the best interest of the American people.
Jehmu, we're getting hints now of some sort of compromise. The president was due to come out and talk to us right about now. We understand that's been put back till about 1 p.m. That in the wake of a statement from John Boehner, the House Speaker, that maybe we can get somewhere towards this 2-month deal and appoint conferees to talk about the longer term immediately. Sounds to me like another super committee.
Well, it sounds like, Speaker Boehner has been spanked appropriately, and some bigger adults have stepped up to the table that hopefully he's listening to them. I think the problem with Speaker Boehner is since the 2010 midterm elections, he has been held hostage by these freshman Republicans. And I think it is important for the more senior, the more committed to compromise, committed to actually having the government function properly, those elected officials who maybe have stepped up and talked to him in the past couple of days, that we're going to see some common sense from him, because what we've seen so far is not common sense. Hopefully through the president's remarks, through what we're hearing from Senator McConnell in the last hour or so, that we will be able to get this 2-month extension. But at the end of the day, I don't have faith in Speaker Boehner's ability to lead anymore. I think he should step down.
Ford, I
absolutely do. I absolutely do. I think Speaker Boehner's doing a great job holding the line because he recognizes that things have just gone amok for the last 30 years in Congress. Principally, he's taken the right approach. But I do agree with Greene, with Jehmu, that, at times there is a political aspect to this game. And right now, the Republicans are better served fighting elsewhere, given the fact that the American public is against them on this issue because they don't understand what's going on in Congress. So Speaker Boehner needs to come together and get a compromise on this, and let's move on, because there are bigger battles out there, and we really need to replace President Obama in 2012, because Jehmu, believe it or not, it's President Obama who's best promoting this class warfare, because look at how he's coming out there. He's pitting everybody against House Republicans and saying, well, it's their fault, not mine, and yet he's showing absolutely zero leadership on this issue.
All right, let's move on that point to who might try to replace President Obama, but I just want to put a button on the issue of the payroll tax cut debate and Congress's behavior with this comment from Christopher Mahoney. There is no compromise in Congress on either side. Christopher says on our live chat, the people in Congress have forgotten who they are working for. Probably a point on which all of us would agree. So let's get to the Republican presidential race. We have a new poll now about who might be the strongest opponent against President Obama. Mitt Romney, 35% Mitt Romney would be the strongest opponent. 25% Newt Gingrich, 15% for Ron Paul. That is a Rasmussen poll. And then the USA Today Gallup survey you just saw there, which we'll put up again. Who would you be more likely to vote for in the 2012 presidential election? President Obama against Mitt Romney, 50-48. And exactly the same figures, in fact, for President Obama against Newt Gingrich. So, Ford, who should Republicans put up against the president next year?
Well, that's not for me to decide. That's for Republican primary voters to decide.
Come on, you have a thought on it.
Are you not a Republican primary voter? I'm sure you're registered in some state.
Jehmu, from an organizational and fundraising perspective and from a general election argument, Mitt Romney is definitely the best positioned to take on President Obama next year. But, you know, right now, a lot of Republican primary voters have an issue with him because they don't see him as a fighter and a strong conservative leader. They see him more as that little red wagon on Christmas, old, reliable, and someone who will get the job done. But again, it's for Republican primary voters to decide, not me. Obviously, I'm one of them, and I have my own decision, but I'm neutral in this. I'm just calling balls and strikes.
I'm so glad you brought up that red wagon, Ford, because you know what happens when, you know, the wheels start going a little weird and you're pulling it and you want it to go straight, but it actually goes to the right, and then you pull it another time and it goes to the left. That is exactly what Mitt Romney is. He is that broken down red wagon that chooses whatever direction it's going to go in based on not where you're pulling it, but where the wind takes him. And that's exactly why Republican primary voters have said, we're not that excited about you.
But Ford, on the basis of where we're looking right now, it does look as though as I think the New York Times put it yesterday, the stars, or maybe it was Associated Press, the stars beginning to align a little bit, it seems, for Mitt Romney. All of these flavors of the month we've had seem to be falling away a little bit. And while they may not have a whole lot of enthusiasm for him, there does seem to be some sort of coalescing around Mitt Romney just as we get towards the Iowa caucuses.
No, there is, and I think part of it is because he's changed his message strategy. Instead of touting his executive record in Massachusetts, which we all know is a very liberal state, he's decided to tout his business experience as a private sector citizen, which I'm sure in 4 minutes from now, Jehmu's going to come down on me about. But it's still far better than what we have with the president. It's a very strong message overall because he is the one person out there in a general election who's actually balanced the checkbook and knows how the economy works, versus President Obama, who just tries to do his Harvard academic, well, we'll let the people decide, and this will work and that won't work. And look where we are. I mean, the guy is destroying the economy, and we're just sitting by and watching, and Jehmu's defending it.
Jehmu, quickly, I got to get to William Lajeunesse in LA, but quickly respond to that.
I think all we have to do is look at Romney's record at Bain Capital, and in South Carolina specifically, all of the thousands of jobs that were lost because of his business decisions. I don't think we want those business decisions affecting the rest of America in the same way that they did that one state.
All right, stick around.
That's because the president's making such great business decisions overall, right, Jehmu?
All right, Ford, Jehmu. Jehmu, aside from the whys and wherefores of this particular issue, this particular sheriff who has been controversial for many years, is immigration going to be a big issue for the next election, do you believe?
It should be. It needs to be. And I think we've seen some rumblings of it in the Republican nomination process already, where first we had Rick Perry really, unfortunately for Republicans, shoot himself in the foot by talking about being compassionate and being humane with immigration laws. And that was one of, his first steps in the wrong direction. But I think we saw the opposite when Newt Gingrich came out and talked about the need for the immigration debate to be a little bit more compassionate. And I think it's not about just looking at the DREAM Act or looking at how we're separating families. These are huge issues, but at the end of the day, with our economy in the position that it is, there does need to be a recognition that immigration plays a big part of our economy, and I think that is how it will play a bigger role in the presidential debate. That how does immigration affect our economy? How does it affect businesses? If that is the conversation that happens in the 2012 elections, I think we can see some movement on immigration reform. If it's only about securing the border, if it's only about crime, I think that's where we get lost and haven't been able to see any progress.
Ford, do you think the immigration debate should be about the issues Jehmu mentions, the economy, how it aids our economy, or should it purely be on keeping the border secure?
It has to be on keeping the border secure, because our current immigration policy is a little bit like our tax code. It's all over the place. Nobody knows what's going on. And I respect this sheriff down in Arizona because he's doing something that the federal government isn't, and that is trying to secure the border and make his county safe. But I do agree that in a lot of ways, one of the key voting blocks in this next election is going to be Hispanics. And it's up to Republicans to do the best job they can to help Hispanics come over to our side and understand that we're the party that's best for the economy and best for family values. And I think if we do that, President Obama is going to lose, because in Florida, Colorado, New Mexico, and Nevada, it's ours for the taking if we can sell it to the Hispanics. But we have to watch how we handle immigration, and we have to watch the fiery language. But it is about securing the border, and definitely, immigration is good so long as it's legal. Illegal immigration really causes a real thorn in the side for both parties.
But Ford, can we look at the Alabama legislation, one of the harshest, anti-immigration pieces of legislation we've seen, where it criminalized anyone who, even if you were even driving with an undocumented immigrant, if, it criminalized not just employers, you couldn't have any contracts with the government. Now the Republicans who shepherded that in Alabama have said, uh-oh, we've made a mistake. Not only are our crops rotting in our fields, they had, a Mercedes executive and a Honda executive that were picked up and detained, and they are now looking at that piece of legislation and saying, we made a mistake and we need to go back in and change it. That's how immigration affects the economy. That's when you have business leaders coming out and saying, this is unacceptable. We cannot go down this road of demonizing these immigrants who actually are making significant contributions to the economy, who are paying taxes in many cases and have put a lot of money into the Social Security Trust Fund. That is not a part of the conversation when you only focus on securing the border.
Jehmu, I disagree with you. When the federal government doesn't do its job, you're going to see state governments take matters into their own hands.
And they shouldn't.
I have to review the Alabama.
Federal government should do their job. I agree with you.
But they're not doing their job. How many illegal immigrants do we have in the United States right now? 18
They're not
to 20
doing their
million?
job because we had President Bush, John McCain, Orrin Hatch. We had all of these Republicans who were committed to comprehensive immigration reform in some way, shape, or form. And then when your party was taken over by the right wing, we've seen a complete flip-flop on any sort of progress. And that has to come to an end. We cannot,
Jehmu, the bottom line,
just
listen to me, until we actually, look, the immigration right now is more messed up than our tax code, okay? You and I both agree that we need immigration reform and we need to work on this problem. But until the federal government steps forward, I can't fault states like Alabama and Arizona for taking matters into their own hands and doing what's in the best interest of those states.
And ruining their economies as they do.
Hold on. Sometimes are they going to go afoul? Sure. But you want to know what? At least they are putting the right foot forward. Over time, we're going to find the right balance between Alabama, Arizona, Massachusetts, wherever. But the federal government really needs to take the lead on this.
Jehmu, how important do you think, as an aside to this, will the Hispanic vote be next year? And is that a vote that either side can just pigeonhole as an immigration vote?
I don't think they should pigeonhole the Latino vote only under immigration. Now, immigration is an important issue for Latino voters. When you look at 1 out of 10 families in America live in mixed status family, so it's not just, there are immigrants who have come here legally that make up a lot of the Latino population, but their family members, their friends are very much connected to these mixed status family situations. So they have a connection when it comes to immigration, but Latino voters care tremendously about education. They care tremendously about the economy, and it would be bad for Democrats or Republicans to say immigration is the only issue they care about. But because in Arizona, Alabama, and from a media standpoint, how conservatives have really demonized immigrants, I think that is going to play very badly for them. And in some states where we've seen even Democrats re-registering and moving over to being independents, whether it's Colorado, New Mexico, some of those states that President Obama was able to be successful in 2008, I think because of how they've been demonized Latino voters, he is going to be able to bring those states back into the Democratic.
Ford, does a Republican candidate, whoever he or she may be, run a real risk of losing the Latino vote if they take too hard a line on immigration?
Yes, I absolutely think they do. In a lot of ways, I do agree with Rick Perry and Newt Gingrich's approach. I think they need to couch it in a little bit better terms. Look, Latinos have soured on President Obama. It's there for our taking on the Republican side. We just have to make the case to Latinos, and I think the best way to do that is through small business and family values. And if we do it, it's going to be the Latino vote along with Hispanics, the Latino vote along with independents and seniors that are really going to decide this election in 7 or 8 states. And I do agree with Jehmu that Colorado, Nevada, and New Mexico, along with Florida, are right there, and those are going to be litmus tests, and Latino voters are going to play a big role in this election.
All right, Ford O'Connell, chairman of Civic Forum PAC and co-founder of Project Virginia. Thanks very much for being with us from D.C. today, Ford.
Thank you, Jonathan. It's always a pleasure, Jehmu. Happy holidays, guys.
Jehmu
Merry
Greene,
Christmas, Ford.
Fox News contributor. Merry Christmas to both of you. Happy holidays. We'll see you all in the new year. Thank you both so much.